History has proven that invading Afghanistan is perilous and occupying it almost impossible. Right now, the mightiest military power in history has gathered its allies in Chicago, and all are looking for a way out of the Afghanistan war that leaves the country with some hope of a peaceful, stable future. Australia's at the table, and today the Prime Minister signed a $300 million deal with the Karzai government to help fund the Afghan army after most of the foreign troops withdraw in 2014. Earlier today, I spoke with General David Hurley, the Chief of the Defence Force from Chicago. General Hurley, welcome.
Chris, thanks very much for having me on tonight.
How will the Australian commitment to Afghanistan change over the next 3 years?
We will gradually take our hands off the tiller and be stepping back from our role, partnering and mentoring right out in the forward areas with the ANA and the ANSF, including the police, and be pulling our mentoring teams back into to Tarankot and beginning to mentor at a higher level only. So we work at the brigade level now, and that's where we'll pretty much stay, and at the corps level. So the Kandaks, the battalions out in the field, will continue now to develop their own operations, conduct their own operations under their brigade command.
Beyond 2015, the government's offering to pay $300 million over 3 years to help the Afghanistan military, but what will the Australian troop presence look like?
Well, that's still, we're working with ISAF on that, and with the Afghan government, obviously, because once they become responsible on the 1st of January 2015, they'll have the call of the shot in how the operation is conducted. And we'll be in discussion with them through ISAF as to, and NATO, what will that force look like in this particular task. But we know that we would want to continue our work with the Afghan National Army in terms of assisting in training. We'll continue with the artillery training school that we're working with at the present time, probably do some logistics training, and we're in discussion with the British and the New Zealanders at the moment about providing officers and senior NCOs to train in their officer academy. So there'll be institutional trainers is the title given to that. Depending on the shape of the headquarters that follows after the current headquarters ISAF, we may have embedded staff in that. The other area we'll look at is assisting the continued development of the Afghan National Army Special Forces, perhaps in a training function. And as the Prime Minister has indicated on a number of occasions, we will be in discussion as well as to whether a continuing counter-terrorist role is required.
How can we have any confidence in the Karzai government in future, given its record is so bad?
Well, I mean, the Karzai government has 2 years to run before the next elections in 2014. Across the border, yes, it's a patchwork, I suppose, in terms of delivery of local area governance and services. But across the board, I think there's also a good sign that things are growing and going in the right direction. Remember, this is a government that's really less than 10 years old, and the standards we hold it to are often very, very high. It's got a lot of work to do, granted, but the international community, I think, is being quite consistent in its message that it wants to continue to help Afghan governance and develop the community over the foreseeable future.
To stabilise Cambodia, the world in the end had to negotiate with the Khmer Rouge. Is it your expectation that to get peace in Afghanistan, the world will have to negotiate with the Taliban?
Well, war is, as they say classically, an extension of policy and politics. In bringing all wars to an end, there's a political element to it, and there's a requirement at times to negotiate with the people you've been fighting. I mean, that's well and truly been seen through history. I think, well, I'm very sure there will need to be a level of reconciliation with elements of the Taliban to be able to enable Afghanistan to progress peacefully into the future.
And what about Pakistan? It offers the Taliban safe haven. Its intelligence services have routinely been accused of working with them. I know that the Prime Minister met with the President today. What was the message that was sent?
I think the message, the Prime Minister met with President Zardari this afternoon. The message from both sides is that a stable Afghanistan is in the international community's interest, Afghanistan's interest and Pakistan's interest. I think we agree on that central point, and working towards achieving a stable Afghanistan is something that all our energies need to go to. I think we've seen some reasonable progress in that area with meetings over the last 6 months ago between the Afghanistan government and the Pakistan government. Early steps, but I think those confidence-building measures can be built on now in that relationship.
It's impossible to try and predict the future, but given what you can see at the moment and the commitments from the NATO allies, what level of confidence do you have that there is a path to peace for Afghanistan?
Chris, I think one would be foolish to say there's not a lot of risk involved in what we face ahead of us. And certainly, as always, the Taliban have a role in this. And the relationship with Pakistan, you've indicated all those. I think as the transition goes forward, if Aruzgan and the quality of the operations we're getting out of the 4th Brigade is echoed across the country, and in many places it is, I think we can have reasonable confidence that the ANA will produce a good fighting force that's capable of managing its own current levels of Taliban activity. As we transition into the post-2014 arrangement, there'll be forces there in that shape I discussed earlier on that will provide some risk mitigation for the Afghan government. So on that side, on the security side of the house, you can, I think, can have reasonable confidence that we can produce a good outcome there. As you mentioned before, though, getting the governance and delivery of services, law and order sorted out, still a lot of work to be done in those areas. But the important thing here is people are not turning a blind eye to these. They're not the elephant in the room. I mean, people are grasping hold of the fact that there's some big problems and issues that still need to be addressed, and putting energy, thought and resources into trying to resolve them.
General Hurley, thank you.
Thank you very much, Chris.